good afternoon. My name is Michelle Velez, and I am the state president for the California Association of Mortgage Professionals. Thank you all for joining us today. I would like to first introduce and thank Christina McDonald, who is our education chair this year. And I wanted to let you know that if you have any questions or would like to see any specific webinars or content, please reach out to Christina. Christina?
I will go ahead and put that in the chat, my contact information. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, Christina McDonald is doing an excellent job this year. So I really want to thank you for all that you're doing for the association. First up, I would like to, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call the panelists' names, and then they're going to give you some background information. We want to talk about first things we want to include when they introduce themselves is how long have you been in the industry, and did you start out as a business owner? And if you did not, what is your background and how long have you been in business? So first up, Brenda Cantu.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brenda Cantu, and I am the owner and co-founder of Pro Mortgage, which is located in San Rafael. And Pro Mortgage will be celebrating its 26th year in business in February. So we've had a good long run. I did not start out as a business owner, however. I started out working for a thrift way back when called Household Finance, and I was the collector. So I used to repossess people's cars. And then I started working for a savings and loan, and was one of the very few women that worked in loan origination. This is way, way, way back in the 80s. So I've been in the mortgage lending space since the 80s, but a business owner since for 26 years.
I love that. I didn't know that we had the collector part in common. I love that. We can talk later.
I'll come get your car. Not really.
We get to talk about knocking on doors too. Okay, collect your payment. Mr. George Tribble, you are up.
Yes. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. I started out working for IBM right out of college. And then after about 5 or 6 years, I moved back to California, and I was going to involve myself in real estate, but I was going to do it with a friend who was extremely conservative that I found out on my first transaction. So I immediately stopped and got my broker's license because I had the background because of my college education. I didn't have to go to a lot of the classes. And I took 4 classes simultaneously and passed, and then I went for my license, and then I started dealing with the mortgage side. But I was doing real estate and mortgages, and then over a period of time, mortgages won out, and so that is what I do now. I worked for Bank of California, which is part of Sumitomo Bank back in the 80s, and so I did that for a couple of years. So that gave me a little bit more experience. Then I finally decided that I didn't want to work for any of the big corporations anymore. I wanted to get on my own. And so I started the business. And then later in 2008, I think I got tired of being in business with all the crazy turn down in the marketplace. And so I closed that business and went to work for John Frangoulis. Many of you might remember him. And so I later bought the business from him. And so I have one partner, and so that's where we're at now at Realtech Financial Services in Walnut Creek.
And finally, Mr. Dale DiGennaro.
Good afternoon, everyone. I got into real estate or the mortgage broker business in 1986. I moved from New York to California, and my dad had already kind of started in the business to some degree. He was a retired attorney, and so we kind of got the business going right out of the box in '86, and been doing mortgage brokering ever since 1986. That's what I've always done. That's what I'll always continue to do. we work primarily right in the Napa area. I was in a band prior to getting into the mortgage business. That was
Oh.
probably for like 17 years, I think it was, for quite a while, all different kind of bands and music and so forth. And it was funny because when I got in the mortgage business, I was kind of glad. It was way easier than what I was doing in the music business.
That's funny. Okay, so what instruments did you play? Just,
I was a drummer.
you're a drummer, all
Mhm.
right. Okay, so we have drummers, we have a trumpet player, singers. You can get the band back together.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's just start out with some canned questions, and then hopefully if anybody has anything that they're wondering, that they will drop that into the chat and we'll get started with that. But first one, I'm going to start with Brenda. What is a piece of practical advice that you would give to someone just getting started in or interested in a career in the mortgage origination,
So I think to answer this question, I think there are 4 key components that anybody considering a career in this space should consider. One would be, you have to understand that to be successful and to build a lasting career, a mortgage broker or mortgage originator job has 2 components. One, you are a salesperson first and foremost. So the most successful loan agents I've observed that we've managed and that are on the team at Pro Mortgage have figured out a system to avoid the peaks and valleys. So you go out, you prospect for business, you get all this business in, you work on the business, you don't go out in the field, you close the business, now you have no loans, and you start the cycle up again. So the most successful loan agents I've observed find a system and work that system very regularly to even out the peaks and valleys. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is, in addition to being a salesperson, you must be a technician and you must be good at putting a loan together and understanding how to underwrite. So if you have a little time on your hands right now, really think critically about where you're weak. We all have our weak spots. Do you really understand how to do an appraisal rebuttal? Do you really understand how to look at K1s? Do you really understand how to look at an operating agreement for an LLC? Figure out where you're weak and go seek some training. It is very important to be a good technician. Third thing, everyone needs a coach from time to time. So if you don't have a support system around you, hopefully you have a sales manager or an online community or a networking group, but you need to have a place to go to help solve problems and hone your skills. And at Pro Mortgage, we do that all the time, where someone will have an issue, they'll bring it up to the group in the weekly meeting, we bat it around, how about this, how about that? I think that's critical to have it. So if you're a one-person office, man or woman, and you need help, make sure you find a community to support you. And camp is a great place to turn for that. We are here for you, and we're always willing to answer questions. Any one of us, call me anytime. The third thing I think it's really important, fourth and final, figure out how you like to solve problems. So are you a problem solver? Because loans are problems and they need solutions. So are you someone who says, I want all the tools available, I'll look. Or are you somebody who likes to be a little more binary and, here's my set of guidelines, I know it, I'm going to run with this, I don't want to have too many options. So figure out what works for you and then form your team. Is it 3 wholesale reps? Is it 30 wholesale reps? Is it 1 lender? Figure out what works best for you, for your style, to solve your client's problems. So those are the 4 pieces of wisdom I would impart on anybody for this business. And I've seen successful loan agents use these and thrive.
Dale, do you have anything to add to that?
I just think it's really important to, when you first get into the business, to know the underwriting aspect of it too. That was kind of my thing. I just don't like dealing with salespeople that don't kind of know more what's going on with the transaction. And my forte has always been basically getting the deal done. I do a lot of more difficult transactions, kind of got known for that, good or bad. Sometimes it's bad because you end up doing much more work, but you get the rest of the deals as well. So
That's true. How about you, George? Do you have anything else to?
I
impart?
agree with both of them. That's absolutely true in terms of what they've said. The only thing I would add is that once you learn some of this information that we've just been talking about, it's always good to start with some people that you know, if you have people that you know, and try it out on them. And that helps you in terms of maintaining a good positive image of yourself in terms of being able to generate revenue and then expand from there. Because once you have the knowledge, you can talk with anybody, but you got to start someplace.
So one question is, are there any specific challenges that you guys had when you first started out? So, I mean, sure. I mean, I've been in the business for 30 years, and when I first started, rates were way higher than they are now. So what kind of challenges did you guys face when you guys first started? And I'll let anybody answer that.
Well,
Just it
yeah,
out.
for me, it was a little bit crazy because I did not know other people who were mortgage brokers. And back in the 80s, if you did know another mortgage broker, we had no association, so everybody was independent. And so you would approach them with, hey, I got this loan and I'm kind of trying to figure out where to submit it. And they would look at it and they said, well, Joe, why don't you just send it over to me? I'll take care of it. And now they will say, why don't you try this lender? They have some programs that would meet that. And so because of the creation of the CAM, and that didn't come along until 1990 in October, we didn't have that capabilities. And so a lot of people kept things to themselves, and they could have grown faster if we would have had an association earlier, because once you have the association, people tend to act better toward each other.
yeah, I would completely agree with that. It was really helpful when I got into the business to have that, which wasn't there, as George was saying initially. But once I found out about the association had been formed and got involved, it was very helpful to hear what other people were doing around the state and finding out, different avenues and ways to do things and get things done.
Brenda?
Well, when I first started, you're not going to believe this, but I was pretty shy and I was very young. So
Still very young.
I was very young. And I think some clients, I used to sit in the desk in a bank, and some clients didn't want me to work on their mortgage loan, I think, because I was young. So I took some public speaking courses so that I could gain some confidence. And I went out and made as many presentations as I could to realtors to establish some credibility. So again, I think we all should look at, what do we need? Where are we maybe deficient in our business skills, and seek help around those things to strengthen. And again, CAMP, I can't say it enough, is a great place to turn for those resources.
It's funny, you guys kind of talked about your background and how you got started in the business. I always say I backdoored into the industry. I started out in the finance, in the insurance sector. So I started out selling car insurance to car dealerships. And what that was is, at the time in the 80s, that if you didn't have insurance, we put a 30-day binder on so you could buy that car and get off the lot. And I moved into finance at a finance company, knocking on doors and collecting payments, as well as making loans and learning how to do second mortgages and such. And I think it was probably in 1994 that I actually, in 94 is when I started doing just straight mortgages. But so yeah, I mean, everybody has a different avenue and how they got in, and different challenges, and I love the idea of taking public speaking. Toastmasters is your friend. When I was coming up as a state president for the very first time, I joined Samcar Toastmasters because I needed to feel comfortable speaking in front of groups. And so talking about camp leadership, we've been around for a while. I've been around for about 15 years. And George, you are a past state president and you've been around with camp for how long? Since it started?
I started in October of 1990. I got an email and it said, we're having a meeting. It was mortgage brokers. And I said, wow, that's great, because I really don't know more than one or two of them. And so I went to a meeting, and it turned out it was a board meeting. Not, I thought it was a general meeting that was open to the public, but they said, oh no, stay around. And 2 months later, I was on the board. So, I don't know if that was a good thing or not. But that's how I really got started with the association, and it's been very helpful since then. But we had that meeting at Jenny Ferguson, one of our past presidents, and so it was very good that did occur at that time, and it's been very helpful in terms of I don't see how any of us could have obtained the levels that we may be at now if we did not have some kind of association that educates you in terms of about the lenders, new programming, and all kinds of things that are helpful for us as originators.
That was the one thing that I was going to say is I didn't get started right away with so like I said, I started in 94, but I became a member of camp in the early 2000s. But it was at the time in the industry, some of the things that were going on were they were talking about subprime lending, and they were shutting down cities were saying, nope, we're not going to do any subprime lending. And remember, it was an issue in Oakland in the late 90s. And I started seeing these information from CAM saying, hey, if they shut down subprime lending, that means all lending is going to shut down within the city of Oakland. And I know that that's how I started getting involved with going to meetings and stuff. The education that you get from the environment and within the association has always been helpful. Brenda, how long have you been involved with camp? And
since the 90s. I remember joining probably late 90s, maybe around 97. So quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I
And
think
Dale,
it's important if we're, because it's a bit of a disparate group. People working from home, people working in smaller shops. We need the support that a professional organization provides. So for me, that was the appeal. I was always independent. After I stopped working for the savings and loan, I was independent, and having a network and a scaffolding was helpful to me as a professional.
and Dale,
I attended a NAM meeting actually that was in Napa at Silverado Country Club in 1991. That's how I got into the association. And of course, NAM was more of a commercial type organization at the time. And so then I found out about CAM, and the local chapter was out of the North Bay. It was the San Rafael type area in there, and got to know some people, got involved. The rest is history.
Yeah.
One thing was interesting getting going in the business was there was a lot, and it still goes on these days too, but back then mortgage brokering was newer, and we would always be fighting this fight against the banks and the big banks and so forth. So that's always been interesting. And at least in our area, mortgage brokering is now more sought after, the brokers rather than the banks, to get things done and get the best rates and things like that. So it's kind of come all back around.
Yeah, it seemed like I'm sorry, it seemed like in the late '90s, early 2000s, if my memory serves me right, mortgage origination, about 70% of them were coming from third-party originators, and mortgage brokers is the #1 group within that 70%. So we had a pretty good sized part of the market by then.
Mhm.
But in the '80s, it wasn't that easy. There wasn't as many lenders out there, and there wasn't as many relationships that you could have. And a lot of the lenders were doing more on the FHA, VA type products as opposed to the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac stuff.
You know, what's really interesting is, I was talking to one of, my escrow officers last year, and she was telling me that the majority of the deals that she was closing were all from, originated from brokering sources as opposed to the big banks.
Mhm.
So that's a positive. You know, going back, thinking about how you established your business contacts. And so what are some things that you guys are doing did you do, and are you still doing them to establish business contacts? And how are you establishing your long-term relationships with your business partners? Dale, I'll have you answer that one first.
Well, you know, I've always kind of operated with the idea that, you know, it's one loan at a time kind of thing, and I kind of build my business from there. And it was more reputational oriented. I'm in a small community with Napa, and so the word gets around fairly quickly. And I used that to my advantage, and I've built up a good sized clientele over all these years, and now they support me.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. My customers are the best. They refer, you know, other people to me. You know, these days I'm doing a lot of their children's loans, so that's always interesting and fun. And I always really enjoyed helping people get, you know, a leg up, you know, getting started, getting going. And I've had so many clients that, you know, have done so well over the years. It's really gratifying to have that happen.
George? Oh, sorry, Brenda's got her hand up.
Mhm.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I got started by doing brokers opens every weekend during the week. I think there's nothing better than showing up. If you show up and you see people face to face, and you know, you can help the agent a lot of times. If there's a lot of people in the house, tell them how to get downstairs, or you know, don't make any representations, but help the brokers. And so I still do open houses for some of where I'll host it or just be there and help them walk out, help them get the signs out, be a true partner to your realtors. So to me, that was always where the gold was.
Yeah, that was true for me also, in terms of when first getting started, you didn't have a large client base, and so you're looking for people wherever you can find them that needed to do a real estate financing transaction. And so that was a very helpful start. And the more you do for the realtor, the more they'll do for you. And so I found that to be true. And so I would go quite a bit in the early stages. As time went on, I became, you know, didn't go as frequently, but then at that stage I had grown a base of clients and stuff and repeat business. But to get started, that's a really good way of getting started for purchasing financing. And then the other way is if you're doing refinancing, which a lot of people do, and there's a lot more done now than it was, I think, probably, you know, 25, 30 years ago, is to really build your base and stay in touch with the people that you've helped in the past. And you'll be fortunate, like Dale, in terms of getting repeat business, not only from the ones that you had helped initially, but they have children most of the time, and those children normally will go with what their parents suggest they do. So that's been very helpful. I have clients now that come up to me and they'll say, because I used to do the real estate side also. Mr. Tribble, God, man, you can't believe how much we love you and appreciate what you did for us. You got us in our first home. We've been in there and now we're retired and the house is all paid for. I'd give you a hug if it's okay. And I said, well, you know, you don't have to do that, but if you want to, go ahead. So it's funny how people become attached to you because you've done something that's very significant in their lives. And so that's a good thing to do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I had gotten involved with a realtor in my area too that was doing a large portion of the business.
Mhm.
And that was extremely helpful. We became very close, and she referred tons of business to me, not only for purchases, but a lot of refinances, because she had already been in the business for a longer period of time when I first started. So that was extremely helpful.
Yeah. And for people now that are fairly new in the business, it's if you can find realtors that are doing a good job in terms of transaction volumes and stuff, volunteer your time and tell them that you can help pre-qualify their borrowers. Many times they have someone that they like, but sometimes they don't, and sometimes they have fallouts. And so the thing is that to be uh, asking them on a frequent basis, how can I help you? How can I help some of your client base? If you want me to get them pre-approved for you before you start looking, so you make sure you're only looking for properties that make sense for that borrower and you're not wasting time. Uh, they will enjoy you doing that. And so sometimes they have a person that's already doing that, and so it's hard to break in. But just keep fighting it, and over time you will have some wins that you hadn't
Also,
anticipated. So,
really be aware that relationships change over time. So you
Mhm.
might start working with a broker, a realtor who sends you a lot of business. And
Mhm.
then their nephew gets into the business. So you may not keep that relationship, or they retire or they move away. So you've got to constantly be trying to meet new agents, and don't put all your eggs in one basket because anything could happen. So I've heard it say, well, you only need 3 or 4 agents. I think you need more than that. And I think you should always be friendly and stay in contact with a lot of realtors, because, and truly, don't be random about this. Pick agents that are producing. Do not chase agents that are not selling houses. That's just a waste of time. So find agents that are productive, form a relationship, but help them. Not so much approach them like, hey, what can I do? Give me a loan. Let me pre-qualify. But what can I do for you? How can I help you succeed on your listing? So I think that's, courting those realtors is really important.
Christina?
Thank you. I also, utilizing some of the platforms that are out there, just using Bonzo as an example, will send you alerts, and then also you'll know if the actual realtor is even doing business right now. There's a lot of shift that's happening in the market, and you want to make sure that you're laser focused on who you're actually talking to. But those types of platforms will alert you right away as soon as that house is up on the market. And then you can be the first loan officer to go to that home and offer your services, or like Brenda said, going to broker tour and just meeting people, because a lot of times these realtors are not working with a loan officer necessarily, and you can offer to be that person for them.
Absolutely. There is a question in the chat. It says, my business has been built around realtors. How do you connect and establish realtor relationships? So what are you guys doing to connect? And the one thing that I want to add to what you all just said is, don't be afraid to ask for the business. If you did something really well on a closing and you closed early and you don't know the listing agent, don't be afraid to call them up and say, hey, I did this. Will you give me a chance? Don't be afraid to ask for the business, especially when you've done something well. But what do you do to connect and establish realtor relationships?
I think in
And
addition to what we've already said, I've noticed that some really successful brokers in our office, they just keep going out there. They just keep trying to get in to make a presentation, take them to lunch, take them to coffee, join their board if it's something that is important in an organization. So we have some loan agents here that are just amazing, and they just continue to make the calls every day. They try to establish a touch point. So I think, target those agents that you want to get to know. Target's a bad word, but establish a list of agents that you want to get to know, and then get to know them. I mean, most people have a cup of coffee with you if you call them and ask them politely. So just gotta try, just gotta pick up the phone.
Do you
Yeah,
think it's funny that most people don't make phone calls anymore?
Some people don't answer their phone either. A lot of
They don't
people.
answer the phone, but I think it's important to reach out and talk to people. George, you were gonna say something, and
yeah, my phone rung and it threw me off. Trying to throw it off. Oh, well, this Saturday, I mean, you never stop looking for new prospects to refer you. And I guess we wouldn't call realtors prospects, but they are prospects for our business. And so I'm going to the Contra Costa County Real Estate Association. They're having their installation of officers this Saturday. And so you go to those places, people introduce themselves and you say, no, I'm a mortgage broker, not a realtor and stuff. And you get a chance to talk to some of them. And my goal is to meet at least 3 new ones that I can start doing some kind of business with them over the next 6 months.
that's a great idea. I'm attending San Mateo County Association of Realtors board installation on Friday.
Yeah,
Same thing.
yeah.
Gail, how about you?
I've always attended the MLS meetings that the association has, and I usually also try to go to the others in the North Bay and do presentations and things like that. It's really fun to do it, get out there and meet people, and especially after the pandemic years, right?
Yeah.
To get back out there. But yeah, you meet a lot of interesting people and establish good relationships, and and then referrals too. They do a good job for people, and one realtor will refer a lot of other realtors. So
Yeah. If you do a great job, you can get, like you said, Dale. I mean, you get referrals from the one that you had done a good job for, and he's a realtor, and their friends tend to
mhm.
follow their advice. So.
What would you say is the biggest thing that you're doing differently today than you were 20 years ago to generate business?
Obviously it's
George.
social media
Dale.
stuff, right?
Social media,
It didn't
okay.
exist back then.
Yeah.
Is
But
there anything else?
it's a lot the same kind of premise. It was it's some of that, and like recently I kind of just got back to stuff I used to do, like we were talking about when you first got in the business that you got away from because you had so much business over the years. So
A lot of people started out doing rate sheets and boxes of donuts to realtor offices. I mean, that's the way you got your foot in the door, is you brought your rate sheets in. But if you didn't want to bring just your rate sheets, you had to bring a box of donuts. So what is it that you're doing now that's kind of getting your foot in the door?
Bring 2 boxes of donuts.
I think it's knowledge based. I think it's a complicated, real estate has gotten so complicated in terms of used to be a lot simpler. So I think there's a thirst for knowledge, which we have. So as a mortgage professional, think about all the things that whether it's taxes or qualifying or withholding, appraisal, property value. Think of all the things that every area that you have some knowledge. A lot of agents don't have that because they don't operate on our side. So I think that the thing that's different now, it used to be donuts, now it's knowledge. If you can share knowledge, if you can educate, if you can provide a solution, I think that's where our value shines through. You know more than you think you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot. We tend to do a lot more transactions too than the realtors do. So that's really helpful sometimes when you can impart that knowledge to them as, you know, how things go exactly, because sometimes they're just not doing enough to really know the flow and the best way to get things done, or, you know, how did we address this or that, or, you know, to make this transaction go smoother.
Yeah, and it's very valuable, I think, to some of the realtors, because many of them, they believe that doing a VA loan takes more time, and there's a lot of restrictions, and therefore they kind of stay away from those kinds of transactions. So if you can just start selecting areas where you know realtors have trouble with, you go in and you talk to the broker and say, hey, I'd like to, you know, have a 15-minute, you know, session with your, when you have one of your sales meetings, and I will go over VA loans, because I think a lot of people, a lot of realtors are missing out on that because of their perception of what it is. And so we can really give you the updates. But right now we do VA loans just as fast as we do conventional loans. And someone will be surprised because their thoughts have been that it takes longer and there are more restrictions.
It is surprising on how much quicker things are moving as far as on the loan side. And as long as you educate your realtors and your borrowers of any hiccups that there could be additional underwriting time or that type of thing, I think that you would need to you just let them know up front. There's always going to be this or this or this. This is what could potentially happen. As long as you're doing that, I think, you know, that's going to be the key piece that's going to help. All right. How did you thrive, not just survive, in a changing market in the last 30 years? So, you know, we hear the numbers of loan originators are just dropping down like gangbusters. So I think I saw one report that said that there were 90,000 loan originators nationwide. That's dropped down to 66,000. I don't know. So these numbers, the numbers are reducing greatly. What you guys, how are you guys thriving? How are you guys continuing with this changing environment? What are you guys doing? Dale?
Well, I've learned after a couple of these things that you cut expenses right away. Because you can't fight the Fed, you can't fight the market. It's hard. You can have some success, but it's going to be limited, right? Your dollars that are coming in are going to be limited. So for me, with a small office, I like to make sure that I cut to the bone right away, and that allows me to kind of make it through without taking a second job, so to speak. There's a lot of times when I thought that might have been a better idea. Because, you know, the market does come back around, but it does get challenging, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to dovetail that, because Dale, when I was thinking about this, I broke this into two pieces: as a business owner and as a loan originator. So as a business owner, cut expenses, period, end of story, and do it fast. So this is my third major downturn, .com, Great Recession, and now I'll call it inflation mitigation. This is the worst one. And in the last two cycles, wasn't fast enough on cutting expenses. So learn that the hard way. And that's, if you take anything away, those listening, if you're running a business, be careful about that. And as a loan originator, I think you just have to recognize you can't fight gravity, but what you are going to have to do is fight much harder to maintain your market share. So you've got to stay out there. You've got to get out there, get out there, get out there. So it's a fight. When there's less transactions, you want to keep your share, you're going to have to work harder for it.
And also, I think, try to anticipate when we come out of this terrible thing that we're in right now. in terms of where the market's going to be going to. I've seen people now go to second mortgages, home equity lines, but there's not a lot of lenders out there doing them right now. And so, but you have to find out where people can get money, because people still need money, but it's expensive and they don't want to do a refinance of a 2.5% loan at $600,000 for $100,000, you know, that they need. So you just have to be able to move and move quickly with what's happening in the marketplace. And find
Christina.
some lenders that are good, because there's some lenders that you start off with and it takes a long time to get through on the transaction.
Christina.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. You know, I think one of the biggest pieces around, you know, as far as creating success for yourself during a difficult market, and this has been my second downturn in this business after being in the business for about 26 years, is really around being, you know, staying around people that are much more successful than yourself is super imperative. Because if you are around the naysayers, if you're around the ones that say that it's never can be done, I can tell you just by pulling some of the MMI data, there are plenty of loan officers that are actually capturing business. And, you know, I always wonder, you know, what is the difference there? And I think part of it, and it's one of the reasons why I really enjoy being part of this organization for since 2001, is exactly that, to be around people that are more educated than I am, that I can learn from and elevate myself. But, you know, the other piece to it also is really focusing on what you want, you know, versus what you don't want. And it's one of the things I do, you know, especially if you turn on the news now, it can be negative and the business is challenging. And so how do you move yourself away from this sort of negative conversation? And the way to do it for myself is to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to change the channel here in my mind, and I'm going to focus on what I want and not what I don't want. So I think that would be my biggest takeaway.
I think I'll dovetail on that and say, focus on what you can change, and things that you can't change, that don't make that your primary focus. So we can't control rates. We can't control what's going on with the rates. The rates, period. But you can choose to review the different programs that are out there, and how many lenders are coming out with new products. There are lenders that are retracting, but there are lenders that are coming out with new products. There's so many more second mortgage programs now. There's a stated income bank statement second mortgages. So there are a ton of different programs that are available. And oh my God, you know, looking at down payment assistance, you can in the 5 Bay Area, or actually in San Mateo, San Francisco, and I want to say Marin County. I think your income limit, it can be up to 300,000 to do a Cal HFA loan. That's absolutely incredible if you really and truly think about it. A lot of areas are 292,000. So if you just take the time to review the different products that are available, you have more of an ability to go out and talk to your realtors, helping them get deals. We've got these DSCR loans that you're just qualifying on the rental income that's received. So you could be talking to your realtor partners and say, hey, you know what, these loans are available for a non-owner occupied, and you're only looking at the rental income to qualify. What about looking at reverse mortgages? I mean, there's options for the elderly as well. There's the 203K loans. There are so many different loans that are available out there. You can specialize on some of them. You can expand on it, but there's different avenues to set yourself apart and to remind you, these are different ways that you can get business. Also, take a look at commercial lending too. A lot of questions that I get right now are on hard money or private money loans, because a lot of people are not able to get money from the bank. So there's those types of loans available. Different things to think about. Think outside the box. I always tell everybody whenever I'm in my networking groups is I think outside the box. That's what makes me different. So speaking of being different, when you are creating value by identifying a need in creating the solution. How have you created value? How have you created your unique value proposition? I'm going to start with Brenda on this one.
So this is an interesting question, because for me, I really like working at opposite ends of the real estate financing spectrum. And what I mean by that is I love to work with first-time home buyers. Love it, love it, love it, love it. I try to talk to them like I would want someone to talk to my own daughters about how to successfully, responsibly, ethically close a home loan. So I love that. On the other end of the spectrum, I really like working with super sophisticated investors. I'm a real estate investor myself, so I can speak to a 1031 exchange or an LLC structure or a TIC structure or a DST. So I really try to meet people where they are and provide them the knowledge they need in that moment. So I think it's important to be a generalist, like Michelle was saying. You should know a lot about a lot of different things. So I don't like the hyper focus of I am a VA specialist or an FH specialist. That's fine if you want to do that. I just think being a generalist and understanding a lot about every segment of the market makes you a more valuable professional. So I tend to go really high-end sophisticated or first-time home buyer and kind of everything in between. I recommend being a generalist and meet people where they are.
Yeah,
I would totally agree with that. And it's exactly the way I do my business too. And it's been interesting because since I've gotten this business, I always thought if the banks knew what they were doing, I wouldn't have a job. But thankfully, they don't often know what they're doing. So
Yeah,
they don't seem to have learned over the years either.
yeah. Well, I'm 100% in agreement with both of their comments. They're right on the mark.
One further thing I'd like to add, don't be afraid. If you don't have experience doing an SBA loan, find somebody who does and do one. If you don't know how to do a commercial loan, find somebody who does and pick their brain. So don't be afraid. Round out your knowledge and go out there and try those loans. They're not as hard as you think. They're not as scary as you think. You already know a lot. You already know how to qualify a transaction. So just expand your brain, if you will, a little bit and learn a new skill. And I think that's just, don't be afraid. So many times we sit back because we don't know how to do it and we don't want to screw it up. You won't. Find somebody to help you, and that's highly recommended.
And camp is great for that.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people, they just don't even want to try it. They think it's too difficult. And they already know the basics of understanding how to qualify a person. And so now it's just some deviations from that. And they'll, you'll be really surprised how fast you can come up to speed with something that you thought you would never conquer.
absolutely, absolutely. How important is mindset to the success of your business? So, expanding on that, if you have how important is having a positive mindset as opposed to a head stuck in the sand mindset?
I got kind of a little different approach to this. I know where you're going with it, but my mindset has always been on my client. The client's first with everything. And when I put the client first, it just always has tended to work out, whatever their best interest is. If I needed to refer them to somebody else, or I just don't think I can get the deal done, or I want to work harder to try to get something better for them because I don't like what I've gotten so far. And I think my client base has appreciated that over the years. And it's just, that's my mindset all the time going into a deal. And people aren't afraid then to refer other people to me too, because they know I'm going to put my best foot forward.
George?
Well, mindset is extremely important in anything you do in life, and especially in our industry. We have a large number of products that we can sell to people, but the thing is, you have to really understand the person, what their needs are, and then with your background of studying and with the network of people that we have, if you don't know yourself, you always have other people that you can call that will assist you in terms of understanding that so that you can serve your clients. So I think the positive mindset that says, I can do it, I just need to get some help, is much better than saying, that's a tough one, and walking away.
The other thing that I always adamant about is not answering people if I don't know.
Mhm.
I always say, well, let me check on that and get back to you and try to get the right information, because oftentimes if you go right at it, something may have changed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to just go in and say, oh, yeah, oh, well, the answer is this, and then find out, oh, I'm sorry, but
And a lot of
that
people
changed.
feel like they got to have the answers for everybody right away.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't know that that's really true. I think when you spend the time and the people realize that you did, look into it. Sometimes I'll know the answer and I still do the same thing.
Well, it lets the
Exactly.
client know that you're really interested and
Mm,
doing the right thing for them. And so that's what's very positive about that. And so if you start just answering because you do not want to be a person who don't know everything, that gets you in a lot of trouble.
mm.
There's a couple
But
questions in the chat, and I'm going to kind of combine these two together. So, part one of it is, what are the number of agents that are sufficient to cultivate and work with? But on top of that, I primarily fund residential and commercial real estate loans for borrowers who do not qualify for a bank loan. So, Dale, your hard clients. How do I establish referral relationships with attorneys, CPAs, residential and commercial loan brokers, residential and commercial sales agents? So number one is, how do I establish this? And number two is, what is that magic number of how many relationships that we should be cultivating?
I don't know that there's a magic number. I think, if you have a referral partner who's sending you a lot of work and it's all super complicated and takes a lot of your time, that's going to moderate, how many. So I don't know that there's a magic number. I think you just really want to qualify those referral partners and make sure it's the work you want to do, that you're compatible with the work. Because if somebody is sending you stuff that's just a heavy lift every single time, maybe that's not the best use of your time. So I think you have to qualify the referral partner, and not all referrals are great referrals. Not all referral partners are great referral partners. And I think understanding your value in the equation is really important. You're not just out there trying to get any deal you can. Don't think of yourself that way. Think of yourself as calculating, who do you want to do business with? What kind of work do you want to do? And go after those individuals who will provide you that. So that's my answer, rather than it's a number.
I always just try to get as many as possible.
yeah, well,
Because
sometimes you have, like
like
you say,
we've said, things
yeah,
change with these people and they might be with you one day and against you another. So,
yeah. Sometimes
but
you'll,
it's probably like 10. I don't
yeah,
know if we had to pick a number.
yeah. I think it's hard to pick a number because you might have 3 or 4 referral sources, and they might be providing you with a lot of transactions where you might have somebody else might have 10, but they're not getting more than maybe 10 or 11 referrals that whole year. And so it's going to depend on the size of your referral person, and if they're able to provide you with a lot more, that's going to keep you more busier than you would with a lot more referral sources that are not really providing you with very many leads. So it will change. as your referral individual referral sources are, because like I said, some of them will be much more active than others, and those are the ones that you're really looking for.
And so one of the ways that you guys can do that to get out there is definitely join your chamber associations. A lot of times they have networking meetings. Join BNI, Business Networking International, LATIP. There's all different kinds of networking meetings out there. That would be a great way to meet attorneys, CPAs. There are other like attorney meetings, that networking meetings that they do. Just kind of look into that as different sources that you can get into. One of the questions is you mentioned that the mortgage business is a sales. Where can someone go to learn the sales portion of the business? My first answer is camp. There's a lot of ways to do it there. Definitely with your mortgage lenders are great ways to learning that. What CRMs do you like? Jungo, Surefire, Total Expert, and what other tech do you use? Loan Sifter, Point.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Loan Sifter, I use a lot of Loan Sifter. I use Arrive as a processing software. I use Levitate for email marketing management, MailChimp. So one of the things that came up earlier is, what are you doing differently? And I didn't say this, but I think there are so many tools out there that it's really important to sample those tools, make a pick and go. So don't get stuck in trying to evaluate all this tech. It's all about the same. No offense to anyone, but you just figure out what you need, look at a couple of them, pick a platform and go. Because it's just a tool. That's the other thing you always have to keep in mind. These are tools. The most important thing you can do is show up for your clients and show up to meet people. And then the tools are in the background. I never would say that the tools are in the foreground. They're in the background. They have to be good. They don't have to be perfect. So just pick what you need and go. That's not your most important thing.
Yeah, I'm always working on efficiency. That's like my highest priority probably in this industry, because it's tends to be so inefficient. And the technology can help you, and sometimes it can work against you too. The stuff that does work well is great, no doubt. And I spend, these last year and a half or so, I've looked at a lot of different systems because I've had more time on my hands to look at different things to see how they might work in my business specifically. So it's always you're always it's a fun business because you can do whatever you want to do. I mean, you can pick a specific field to go into, like VA or government loans or commercial loans or whatever you want to do. You can do it all, and you can, you're about as successful as you want to be. I mean, because there's plenty of business out there if you want to go out there and get it. So.
Yeah, but those are all good tools, and the thing is that you don't have to be good with all of them, but the ones that you do use, you want to be able to use them very efficient and not very time consuming, and that therefore you are able to really concentrate on the clients that you're working with in terms of solving their problems, because that's what they're all there for, is tools to help us to do a better job for our clients. And so sometimes you'll find that you'll be using the Loan Sifter much more, but if you do a lot of emailing, then you'll use on those email applications. And once you get them down and it works good for you, there's no reason to change it unless there's something totally new comes into the marketplace that's overwhelming, because all you want to do is serve your clients, and they don't see how you got to the point of the materials they received. All they know is they received it on a regular basis and it was good information. So if you look at them as tools, and it doesn't have to be the very, very best tool, but it has to be a tool that's more than adequate for your client base and for what you want to do.
Okay, there's 2 questions left and we are butting up to time, but really quick. Is there any software recommended to calculate any income from various sources to arrive to lendable DTI? And I want to say I received from MGIC today, there was the downloadable spreadsheet for to be able to calculate income. I would definitely go to mgic.com. A spreadsheet is probably the easiest thing to do. How do you stay in touch with past clients? For example, do you use a newsletter to get more clients? If so, do you have a newsletter provider that doesn't feel like a Martha Stewart newsletter?
I don't use a
I can
newsletter.
say, I do use a newsletter, and I've used one for a long time, and it's the best way to stay in touch with my existing client base. And what I've really noticed over the years was, when they would get different, outreach from these other banks or companies and that all this stuff, they always would call me first. I got such and such in the mail. What do you think about this? So as long as they know you're there. And I try to do my newsletter with a lot of more personal information and pictures and stuff like that in it, so that my clients can kind of follow along with my life a little bit. I didn't get the other question about, what was it, DTIs or something?
Yeah, they said, is there any software for DTI?
Oh,
And,
software.
one other thing, and do you guys have a preference? So, Brenda, what is your preference for your CRM?
I'm not using one.
You're not using one. Dale, what
No.
is your preference for CRM?
Well, I use Constant Contact primarily.
Oh, that, yeah.
And yeah, I don't have I've looked at some stuff. I haven't been that happy with it. So yeah.
I've used Surefire, and I've used Top of Mind. I've used eSherpa. I think they're all different for what they need. I think primarily you should probably look at what's best for your business and what bells and whistles that are important for you to help you choose. I think while the market is kind of slow, maybe do some demos with several of these CRM companies and see which ones have exactly what you need for your business, because everybody has different needs. George, is there a CRM that you specifically use
No,
or you
there's not.
recommend?
There's not one that I can recommend. I'm not using one right at this time, so.
Okay. All right. So with that, just a couple things that are coming up within the association. You will be receiving information regarding a nomination. So if anybody out there is interested in getting involved with either chapter leadership or state leadership, there's going to be nominations are being requested. So for the next 30 days, we will be sending out, periodically, we will be sending out requests for nominations for leadership within the association. In addition to that, if you want to know more information, let us know. We would be happy to talk to you about membership opportunities. The association, a lot of the things that we are working on, we are always your voice in Sacramento, we're your voice in Washington, D.C. We're currently working on trying to ban trigger leads within the state of California. So if they're and success is in numbers. So the more a lot of times when we're talking to our legislators, they always ask, how many members do you have? And we always say that we're advocating on behalf of all the loan originators within the state of California, but it's always strength in numbers. So if you are interested, you can go to the campsite.org. That is THECAMPSITE.org. And you can sign up for membership there. And keep an eye out for nominations for leadership. And one of the things that's really important is you can self-nominate. So if you're interested, go ahead and nominate yourself to join leadership within the association. With that, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you to our panelists and your many years of experience. I hope that we were able to answer everybody's questions. If you have any questions for any of us, Christina gave her email address at the beginning. And Christina, would you give that again?
Absolutely. That sounds great.
Oh, no, verbally say what your email address is.
Email
My,
address.
my email address is CAMP San Diego 8, the number 8 at gmail.com. My phone number is 925-330-1496. Feel free to reach out anytime for any reason, whether it's about nominations or ideas that you have as far as like education, anything you might want to see. I know we have cybersecurity is one of the events that we have coming up. There are 203K, certifications and a long list of different events that we're putting on monthly for you here at camp.
Give them their your phone number again, just in case somebody wasn't able to get it quick.
Or it's and feel free to send me a text. I'm kind of a text person. So 925-330-1496.
Right, Dale, your contact info, real quick.
What was that?
Your
Your
contact info.
information.
Oh, Dale@clgroup.net is my email, Dale@clgroup.net. Phone number is 707-738-0878, and that is a cell phone, so you can text me too.
Brenda.
Brenda at Pro Mortgage, and it's 415-945-4802. Can text there. And I do sincerely mean, if there's anything I can do to help anyone listening with anything that came up today or something that comes up later, I would be happy to talk to you. So don't hesitate to call me. And I think I speak for everyone on this panel.
George.
Except me.
G as in George, D as in David, TRIBBLE at yahoo.com. The mobile number is 510-390-0374. Thank you.
And again, as your state president, I am Michelle Velez. My contact information is, phone number is 925-348-5086. You can call or text me. My email is Shell, SHELLVELEZ @gmail.com. And with that, I thank you all. And Joel, we will reach out to you and talk to you about commercial lending loan originating. So, all right. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate you. Have a great day.
Alrighty.
See you next month.
And Happy New Year.
Yes,
Happy New Year,
absolutely.
everybody.
Yes.
Much success.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.